100 million years ago, the law of the jungle was kill or be killed. Combat was fierce, the outcome usually fatal. To level the playing field, dinosaurs staged the longest-running arms race in history and produced some of the strangest defenses ever invented. The quest for technological superiority accelerated 150 million years ago during the Jurassic period with the arrival of the most famous armor-plated dinosaur, Stegosaurus. The size of a bus and weighing up to 4 tons, its small head earned it the reputation as one of the most intellectually challenged dinosaurs that ever lived. But it is best known for the row of diamond-shaped plates running along its back. Stalking this animal was the newest concept in terror, Allosaurus. Armed with huge claws and gnashing teeth, it could raise itself over Stegosaurus. Being quick and agile, it could jump and pounce on its prey. How could Stegosaurus have defended itself against such overwhelming odds? For paleontologist Bob Backer, one solution could be seen in modern man-made fighting machines, like tanks.
Now this tank works as a fighting vehicle because it can turn around real fast. Stegosaurus worked as a Jurassic fighting vehicle because it could turn around. Now to turn around, you got to push sideways with your arms. And you do that with your deltoid muscle. Sergeant, show your deltoid. It's a good military deltoid right here. Good Jurassic quality deltoid. Now Stegosaurus has the mother of all deltoids. If you held a Stegosaurus upper arm bone in your hands, you could feel this pulsating, maneuvering power. Sergeant, pull out the bone. There is no dinosaur, there's no other animal of any other age with a deltoid like this. Look at this. Upper arm, left side, shoulder, elbow, and this huge squared off crest is for the deltoid. When that muscle pulled the arm sideways, pushing the stegosaur that way. And in the Jurassic, nobody could outturn a stegosaur.
With its prize-winning deltoids, Stegosaurus could turn on a sixpence. But the maneuver was not used for evasive action. It exposed a secret weapon, a tail equipped with a vicious 4-pronged spike. One well-aimed blow could take out any attacker.
Thank you, Sergeant. I have here the Jurassic Tail Training Kit. In this kit, you will find something exciting. Now, here is an enlarged version of a stegosaur tailbone. It is not simple. This is a complex weapon. It's got extra joint prongs here. You have muscle attachments here. You have a hole for a nerve here. You've got attachments for muscles there, and on the underside, an attachment for an artery. And there are 45 of these in a row, each with separate muscular control. What can you do? You wait till your enemy is 10 feet away. You take your flexible 4-pronged stegosaur tail and you use it as a precision weapon. You point it this way, you point it that way, you go up and you fence with it.
In the Jurassic world, Stegosaurus was the only plant eater that stood a fighting chance against Allosaurus. When the predator approached, Stegosaurus literally swung into action, fencing with its tail like a primeval swordsman. Allosaurus needed split-second timing to score a hit. If he missed, just one strike from the Stegosaur's tail could be fatal. But in war, even the best weapons and tactics cannot assure victory. Strewn across the battlefield are the casualties of the dinosaur arms race. 100 million years ago, this sandstone outcrop near Garden Park, Colorado, was the scene of a tragic duel. In 1992, Ken Carpenter of the Denver Museum of Natural History stumbled upon the loser by accident. Buried in the side of a ravine were the remains of a female Stegosaurus. When exposed, the bones made up one of the most complete skeletons ever found. Embedded in a coffin of stone, it was 7.5 meters long. The challenge was how to excavate it. Ken and his team decided to take it back to the lab in one piece, rock and all, by chiseling it out of the ground. When they were finished, a 5-ton slab sat precariously on a few wooden supports. A time-honored technique in paleontology, plaster keeps the rock from cracking when it is moved. But Ken was taking a risk. The slab now weighed 6.5 tons. To lift it, Ken called on the United States Army. A Chinook helicopter, the workhorse of the military, was ideal for transporting an armor-plated dinosaur from the battlefield. When finally excavated, 3 lone tail spikes were recovered intact. But the 4th was horribly deformed, and it was broken in half. To find out what had caused such a debilitating injury, Ken called in medical imaging specialist Laurie McWhinney.
I thought about the trauma when I first saw this. I thought, geez, what could have happened that this spike could have ended up in this condition? It definitely was different from what I was seeing with the other spikes. And I just couldn't imagine what force it could have taken to have this particular spike end up like this.
A CAT scan revealed the spikes were made of bone. In a healthy stegosaur, the bone grows in layers, like the rings of a tree, which makes it strong. But a scan of the broken spike showed it was weakened by massive internal damage.
Bacterium would have entered in through the wound and virtually ate away the bone inside. This would have compromised the structure of this bone. Also, you would probably notice pus pockets, areas where pus would have oozed out from the sores.
After the spike was broken off, the bone began to die. Eventually, the stegosaur developed the bone-wasting condition, osteomyelitis. But what could have broken a bone stronger than an elephant's tusk? Laurie McWhinney thinks the stegosaur may have swung its tail and accidentally hit a tree. The force of the blow stunned her. Now she was easy prey for Allosaurus. But she did not die in combat. Ken Carpenter found her lying in what was once a small pond. Drought had made the land dry and food scarce. A fire sparked by a thunderstorm swept away the remaining vegetation. Dazed and riddled with infection, she was too weak to move and may have died of malnutrition. But others of her kind would be more successful, because Stegosaurus was armed with more than just a tail spike. At least 17 plates, 60 centimeters high, covered in horn with a razor-sharp edge, ran down its back. These bony plates are the most famous feature of a Stegosaurus and also the most controversial. How were they arranged? In a single line? 2 parallel rows? Were they separated, or did they overlap? Because the first finds of Stegosaurus bones were found, broken up and scattered, scientists argued for almost a century over how they were aligned and what they were used for. It was assumed they were defensive, to shield the backbone from attack. But even if the plates were laid flat, the Stegosaurus's flanks remained exposed. The mystery remained unsolved until some observant paleontologists noticed the plates were covered with tiny grooves, which suggested the presence of blood vessels. This meant the plates were living tissue, not solid bone. But why expose vulnerable blood vessels to an attacker? Ken thinks Stegosaurus might have used its plates like an elephant uses its ears. An elephant has a built-in cooling system. When it is hot, it turns into the wind and flaps its ears. The wind cools the blood in its ears and then circulates through its body, reducing the elephant's temperature. To see if he was right, Ken turned to an unconventional technology. If a wind tunnel can test the aerodynamics of an aircraft or an automobile, why not a Stegosaur's plates? Ken experimented with 3 alignments: the simple row, the parallel pair, or the overlapping pair.
Here's my Stegosaurus on a very hot day. It turns his body sideways to the wind, and as the breeze passes over the plates, it causes the wind to become turbulent, and all the heat is then pulled into the wind, thereby cooling the animal off.
To expose the maximum surface area to a cooling wind, the overlapping plates work best for regulating body temperature. But they may have had another equally practical use.
Another purpose for the plates besides thermal regulation might be illustrated by these 2 skeletons. We can imagine a scene 145 million years ago with the Stegosaurus walking through the forest being stalked by an Allosaurus. Once the Stegosaurus is starting to feel threatened, it might turn its body sideways and increase blood flow into the plates, causing them to blush and stand out against the forest greens. It would certainly make itself look bigger and more intimidating. This is kind of like a cat when it's angry, arches its back, fluff up its fur, makes itself look bigger. The plates would certainly have that function in the Stegosaurus.
Clearly, this blushing brute was no docile plant eater, but a cleverly designed war machine capable of attack as well as defense. But victory demanded innovation. Over time, opposition stiffened. Predators got bigger, faster, and better equipped. As the Jurassic gave way to the Cretaceous 135 million years ago, weapons and tactics were being refined. The arms race was heating up. When paleontologist Don Burge heard that 2 amateur fossil hunters had found a hot dinosaur by using an adapted Geiger counter, he did not believe it. But in 1995, he decided to give it a try. The results were spectacular. Buried 60 centimeters down was the fragmented skull of a nodosaur, only the 6th ever uncovered. 100 million years ago, nodosaurs introduced a new battle strategy to the arms race. Instead of plates, they evolved a suit of armor made of 8-centimeter thick nodules of bone that were fused together. Welded to the bone were side spikes covered with horn. Honed to a fine point, they could easily penetrate the toughest hide.
I think it's an amazing animal. People like stegosauruses because they have these great diamond-shaped plates. This guy has all kinds of armor. We're talking about armor like this. Some of this is very sharp, and these are very small ones. I suspect some of the armor here would be maybe this long, big spikes and so on. So maybe like a porcupine. You're going to think twice about messing around with a porcupine because you're going to get hurt.
However impressive, nodosaurs were still primitive. Waiting in the wings was the newest and most sophisticated generation of fighting machines. Battle lines were being drawn for the final showdown in the dinosaur arms race. High above Utah's Canyonlands is Gaston Dinosaur Quarry. Here in 1991, Jim Kirkland of the Dynamation International Society made one of the finds of the decade. But it was a discovery that almost did not happen. Jim was packing up to leave for the season when he spotted something sticking out of the rock. He was stunned. It was a claw twice as big as any he had ever seen. All that remained was the core. Covered in horn, the claw would have been almost 30 centimeters long and sharp enough to shave with. Kirkland had found a super predator, the largest of its kind, a genuine terminator. It was christened Utah Raptor.
20 foot long, about 1,000 pounds, 12-inch claws, killing claws on its feet, 10-inch long, blade-like claws on its hands, teeth 2 inches long, the most sophisticated system of balance, the largest brain of any animal of its day. Utah Raptor was the most dangerous dinosaur around. There was nothing it couldn't take on him.
Could any creature defend itself against a murderous hunter like Utah Raptor? To do so would require impregnable body armor, jagged spikes, and a weapon powerful enough to take out an attacker in one blow.
Cotton plates.
A little bit of space in between these.
No one could have imagined such a beast could exist until Jim Kirkland discovered it alongside the bones of Utah Raptor. Here was a new concept in heavy armor. A tank with attitude. Its head and body were encased in a shell of solid bone which had been fused together. Jim dubbed it Gastonia. Although it had the harmless teeth of the plant eater, its back was lined with vicious spikes.
These may have been for intimidation, because when we look at the skull of Gastonia, we see its eyes face forward. And these things would run down forward, and when you're looking at this animal, you would see spines like this laterally, spines like this sticking up off its back.
Similar dinosaurs called ankylosaurids were armed with tail clubs made up of 3 enlarged bones, which could be wielded like a ball and chain. A direct hit could break the legs of a T-Rex. But instead of a club, Gastonia opted for a dagger. Jim Kirkland found the ultimate predator and the consummate defender lying side by side. The stage was set for the terrifying climax of the dinosaur arms race. High noon, 100 million years ago. Gastonia is peacefully feeding on vegetation, but keeping a wary eye. Lurking nearby is Utahraptor, also looking for a meal.
This thing would grab you with long, powerful arms and start kicking out with its hind feet like a cat, slashing this thing through like a switchblade. Every time it kicked you, it would make a cut 5 and 6 foot long, 10 inches deep. It could probably make a cut about every 2 to 3 seconds. So in 30 seconds, you would have 10 slashes, 5 and 6 foot long, 10 inches deep. Even if you're an animal 50, 60 foot long, it would have opened up your belly and your insides would have fallen out. That's in 30 seconds.
Gastonia first hunkers down, protected by its row of massive shoulder spikes. But Utahraptor keeps coming. Now an arsenal of spikes and blades arranged along Gastonia's flanks like the teeth of a chainsaw are brought into action.
And when you get spines of this size, add the sheath on it, you can add another 4 inches to the end of that thing. And, a nice sharp edge onto it. If that thing was swung at you with a 9 to 10 foot long tail, and it just about cut you in half.
If the spikes fail to deter Utahraptor and it lunges with its claws, Gastonia has a final surprise in store.
As the tail flexed, these would close together. You can see it like that, and that gives you the reason why one face is kind of convex and the other side is concave, to allow for that flex and that scissors action. As this tail swung forward toward you, it'd close. So if you were trying to grab this animal, put your hand down there. If you had a finger there, it'd be sliced right off.
The predators had finally met their match. Armor as solid as concrete, fitted with a battery of lances, had foiled the deadliest weapons ever devised. The arms race had reached its climax. By the time the dinosaurs became extinct, the super killers and their armored enemies had achieved parity. Faced with the prospect of mutual annihilation, they withdrew from the brink of destruction.
I do find it fairly amusing that with Utahraptor, with its sickled claws on its hands and feet, large teeth and fairly well-developed brain for a dinosaur, that we have this relatively slow animal that probably was completely immune to it. Here's where we think may be the most actively fierce dinosaur that ever lived, and living with it probably very happily and not having a care in the world are these armored dinosaurs.
Jim Kirkland's discovery shattered once and for all the myth that Utahraptor could roam free, killing whatever it pleased. For the most advanced warrior dinosaurs, a balance of terror had been struck and hostilities ceased. After 75 million years, nature had intervened, putting an end to the longest-running arms race in history.